So let's go in and add these three guys into a folder. So it's more organized. Name it paint. Add a black mask to our group so we control everything, all three of these layers through a single mask. I'm going to right click and add a generator. Click here. So these are the generators that we have selection for. Let's pick in mask editor and let's alt click to see what it's doing. So right now it's kind of making a weird curvature map out of our curvature map. So let's go in mask editor and play with these settings to get something which we want. So our mask editor is using all of our mesh maps to generate this thing which we see right here. So what these sliders do and what they're controlling, the best way to learn this is just go in, play with those sliders to see how they're affecting your mesh and use it to get something which you want. So right now we are going to go down into our curvature. We are going to increase our curvature to complete 1. I'm going to go up. I'm going to play with my global balance to get everything black, but our edges to be white. So if I zoom on it, that's something which we have. If I press M, you see our paint is showing only in these areas, but not on everything else. So right now our paint is white here and black here. We can invert our mask just by going to our mask editor. And if you click on global invert and turn it on, we have it on. So now our paint is chipping around the corner here and everywhere here. Again, our mask, same as everything else which we had before, is a bit too perfect. So if I alt click on my mask, you see it has same pattern as every other thing which we created. It's kind of perfect. To break it up more, we can go in, add a fill. So this is basically a layering system inside our mask. So we can layer in more and more masks and blend them according to these blending options. So let's go to fill. Let's pick in a grunge map. So if I drag this guy in, I have this layer mask. Let's style it more. And if I make this multiply or divide, it's going to take out from the mask which we had on the bottom. We can tell it how much it's doing it just by controlling through this slider or playing with the main settings which it has. If I press M, you can see how it's breaking up our mask. So that's one more way to get more variation into a mask apart from making it looking more perfect. Right now it's a bit too noisy for my taste, so I'm just going to go in and delete this. Okay, so Substance crashed on me while I was doing that. So let's pick it back from it. I have the same thing set up from the last time. And now I have the same thing, paint pockets, which we had, the paint breakups, and our original paint. So we were messing with our mask in our group. So I had the mask editor done. So we were trying to break up our mask more. So the last time we added a fill layer and tried to make it divide so we have more breakup, which was a bit too noisy. So I'm just going to go in, right click, add a filter, and this time instead of blur, I'm going to pick in warp. So if you see around our mask, it's warping our mask a bit more. If I click on warp and if I change my set intensity, I'm going to have more intense warp or a less intense. Let's keep it a bit to the less side. And if I press M, we have a little bit of breakup around our edges. So let's say we are happy with our grunge, which we have, but we are still missing a little bit of shadow. That paint is a layer on top of our material. So right now it just seems like a continuous mesh. To break it up, what we can do is just go to our original paint layer, and instead of having 0 height, let's give it a little bit more. So one thing which you might see is right now our height is being changed for everything from here to up. If you notice some of those paint chipping, they have a height, but with a bit of gradient, which goes up, then goes down and blends in. Right now it's increasing our height for every single thing. Reason being, our mask is being controlled for everything. So we need a mask that only stays till here, and then it goes black from there and it stays black on our edges. So we're going to build it just now. Before we do that, one thing I feel with my grunge and warp right now, that it has a bit too much gradient. So I'm going to go in and add a level. Level gives us the ability to basically level out our grayscale map. So let's play with this to get rid of those gradients and just have this breakup, which we have right here. So let's go back to our original paint and make sure we don't have any height. Let's make it 0. Now we're going to make in a layer that controls the height around the chipping. So let's go up. On top of our layer, let's create a fill layer, name it paint chipping height. So one quick thing, when I'm doing this, all of these naming convention are something I'm using specific to this project or just something I'm coming up with. If you're working for a project, they might have specific naming convention for your substance, but Substance as a texturing tool has kind of gotten rid of really solid naming convention, because if you're organizing it, we can organize it easily through folders, or if you are lost, you can just alt click and figure out which layer is the one you're looking for. But always having a good naming convention, if you pass it through to someone else, is a good idea. So these naming convention are something of my own. You can have your own. There's nothing solid to it. So let's make in the chipping mask. So if I go in, add a black mask, I'm going to utilize our original mask, which we made for our paint, as a starting point. So to do that, I'm going to go in our levels, not our levels, our fill layer. And in the mask, I'm going to go in and I'm going to go add an anchor point. So anchor point, as we discussed, is an instance system for the layers. So let's name it paint chipping anchor point. Since we have that set up, if I go back to my fill layer and the mask, and if I add a fill, click here, you see we have an option to pick anchor points. And we have our anchor point listed in the one which we created right now. Let's pick this guy. And this layer is going to have a same mask as this one. So now I'm going to go to my fill, go to my levels, scroll down and invert it. So our map is inverted. I'm going to add in a filter. I'm going to make it blur. I'm going to increase my blur intensity so our white kind of pushes a bit further. But now we have a huge gradient right here. To bring our solid white back, I'm going to add in one level and I'm going to play with my levels till our white is taking a bit more over. I'm going to have a little bit of gradient on the side so we have a natural flow. But now this white is taking over everything, even the grunges we have made. So to fix that, we're going to add in one more fill. I'm going to go pick in our same anchor point and make this guy multiply. So we have a new mask that is only controlling the borders of our paint chipping. So if I go back to M, if I go to my fill layer, let's disable everything but keep roughness on and our height on. If I press C, I'm going to scroll through my channels. And if I go to my roughness, I'm going to give it a little bit more roughness than our base paint. I'm going to press M. I'm going to go to my height. And if I increase my height now, you see it's only changing in the corners now. It has a solid gradient. We can always change it just by going here, going to our levels, changing it to give it a bit more to the corner and having a softer fall off. So now if I zoom out, we can see our paint layers is only chipping out in the corner, not chipping out, but have a height around the corner. All right, so we have built our first material for this class, and we have built a material inside Substance. So the beauty of building anything in Substance is most of these are non-destructive, as we have discussed earlier. Plus, let's say something happens, your art lead comes in and tells you that this is not the texture which we want something else. Instead of going in and doing the same thing again, we can just scroll down to our paint layer. We can go to our base color, and instead of camo, we can go into procedurals or any texture that you have imported in or any texture that you need in future. Just drag and drop that guy, and we have that texture replaced in. And it's working with the system which we have created, like every peel is happening where it was supposed to, and every mask is done where we made it to be. On top of that, we still have control on all of our masks which we have made, like levels. I can still play with my levels to see how much it's grunging in or grunging out. I can zoom in and still define my peel, and if I want more gradient on it, I can change my levels. If I want it less blurry or more blurry, I can change my blur. And let's say if I want to hand paint some of those peels, I can go in to my original paint mask. Under the anchor point, I'm going to create a fill. I'm going to create a paint, and let's bring this guy down here. So everything I paint in this mask is going to also be updated on the top layer since we are instancing it. So we can hand paint these information in. We can erase some of these. We can paint them back in. And that system is pretty much non-destructive. Something like this. Let's delete this guy. Let's create one more paint. Move this down. Let's go to my brush. And I'm going to pick in my basic heart. So let's go over brushes shortcut real quick. Control, left click and drag to your left is going to change the size. Control, left click, drag to up is going to change your hardness. And control, left click, drag is going to rotate your alpha if you have any. So I can go in and pick alpha. It's going to rotate my alphas. Let's go back and pick our basic hard. And we can paint in these guys. One thing you might notice is I'm using a pen and it's using a pressure sensitivity. We discussed this earlier, but the pressure sensitivity buttons are right here. So I'm going to make it no pressure. So everywhere I paint black, it's going to run the same operation which we have constructed here, and it's going to update on our paint peel as well. So the caveat with Substance texturing is it kind of looks a bit machine generated. Substance tool gets you 80% there super fast, and you don't have to do much hard work to get something like this. The rest of the 20% and the love which you want to show to your texturing comes from your side, a bit more hand painting to get rid of the machine feeling. By machine feeling, I mean if you look at this edge wear which we have around the corner is a bit too constant all throughout. And in real life, this is not the thing. So every time I see some of the Substance texture material out there and they have a procedural look, I know it's done by a junior or someone who's starting to learn Substance. That's something you might want to look out for. Don't have a look which looks machine generated. So to fix that and give it the last 20% push, which we can do is just add a paint layer. Let's add one more now. If I move it down and make it multiply. So with multiply, I can erase these guys, which we have created in. I can add these guys, but it's not going to go on top of that. In my case, divide is going to work much more better right now. So if I paint in black, it's going to bring in my paint material back. If I paint in white, it's going to give me the result which I had in the bottom layer. So this way, we can delete those procedural looks which Substance is generating to have a bit more natural breakup. This is where your reference will come in handy. Just look at your references, find out how that paint material is being constructed on, and try to get a look like that. So let's finish this class by adding some stickers to our character. Let me just get rid of those. They're bothering me. So let's add some stickers to our character. Let's go in and create one more fill layer. I'm going to go in and add a black mask. The easiest way to add stickers or to stamp something in Substance instead of using a projection is to use a brush. So I'm going to go in, right click, and add a paint. I'm going to pick in a basic hard brush. I'm going to my alphas. You can import in your own alphas, but you have these selections to pick from. Some of these alphas have their own settings, which changes some things. So let's just go in and play with them. Some of those alphas have text in them, so you can add text if you want inside Substance. Previously, it used to be something you have to do from the outside software. So let's say I want this guy. Just double click on it, and we have that alpha done. Again, the shortcuts for brush is Control, right click, drag, makes it bigger and smaller. Control, right click, drag up and down is going to change the hardness of it. Control, left click, drag will rotate your alpha. So to stamp it, I'm just going to disable my size. So it's not going to change the size when I stamp it in. And just click, and it's going to be stamped there. One thing which you might notice is it's taking over the height from the bottom layer. Let's say we want this to not have any height information from the bottom. We want this to have its own height information. So if I go to my fill layer, and if I increase the height, it still carries the height information from the bottom one. To fix that, this is a bit weird case related to Substance. You have to go to your fill, under base color. If I click here, it gives me the channel, which we will control through here. Let's make it height. Instead of linear dodge, let's make it replace. It's right here. Now it's not taking any height information from the bottom part. If you are doing this in a group, you might want to change your height information for the group, but that's basically how you get rid of that. So let's make in the sticker something else. So this is how you construct the material in Substance, and this is how you texture it. This is a basic example of how to do it. We're going to use these same techniques again and again and again to get more complex stuff or sometimes simpler stuff. So let's add in a few more stickers and call this class done.